Live from downtown Detroit, home of WDIV and Click on Detroit, Local 4 News First at 4 starts now.
Good afternoon, I'm Karen Drew. First at 4, Governor Whitmer has mapped out the most direct path, in her words, to get our lives back to normal. It relies on getting millions of Michiganders vaccinated.
If we work together, we can get this done. It is very real. We have to have a set of clear goals to accompany every step of this process.
Governor outlined a 4-step process. Let's get to Kimberly Gill in the newsroom. And Kim, there is a lot to digest as we take a look at these new goals.
Yeah, Karen, good afternoon. Governor Whitmer is setting very specific vaccination milestones, pushing toward a vaccination rate of at least 70% across the state. She's waiving the rewards of lifting COVID restrictions if getting enough of us to get our shots. Well, right now, nearly 50% of Michigan residents have received their first shots. 2 weeks after that number reaches 55%, she says the state will allow in-person work for all businesses. Then 2 weeks after 60% get that first dose, curfews will be lifted at bars and restaurants, and capacity limits will be increased at stadiums, gyms, and other businesses as well. Then 2 weeks after that number reaches 65%, all indoor capacities will be lifted, only requiring social distancing inside. And if we reach 70%, the health department could lift fast mask orders. The lieutenant governor says more people choose to get vaccinated when someone they trust offers encouragement, and that's where you can help.
That means that every person who has not yet chosen to get vaccinated is one conversation away from making that choice. You can make that happen for them and for all of us.
The COVID vaccine, like others before it, for polio and smallpox, is trusted by doctors. Vaccines are our best chance of putting this pandemic behind us and returning to normal.
Governor Whitmer says we could reach that first step by the end of next week, but none of this is written in stone. She's also leaving some room for maneuvering in case numbers skyrocket, in case they skyrocket, or a new COVID variant emerges that doesn't respond to the vaccine. So we'll continue the conversation about these goals coming up on the news tonight at 5. Until then, Karen, we'll send it back to you.
All right. Thank you, Kim.
Sure.
Now, we do know there's a lot to sort through. So if you want to take a second look, or third, take a look at those benchmarks and more specifics. We did post all the information on clickondetroit.com. So, will the combination of vaccine goals and lifting COVID restrictions motivate more people to get their shots? Will people see this roadmap as a promise of greater freedom, or perhaps punishment for not getting vaccinated? Our Paula Tutman went looking for answers this afternoon to those questions, and here's what she found.
Mandates don't work as well as incentives, and so making it clear that the more people vaccinated, the more likely we are to get back to some semblance of our former lives is the right move, according to Dr. Jason Wasserman, a medical ethics expert at Oakland University's William Beaumont School of Medicine.
Especially in light of the history of the last year that has shown that substantial portions of people are not going to comply with social distancing and masking and those other types of things. You know, vaccination's looking to be our only route out of this. And then if people aren't going to get vaccinated, then we're going to see these constant cycles of surges.
Stephanie got her shots for very specific reasons.
Because I want to see my parents.
And while she does not judge those who are making the choice not to get the COVID vaccine, she can see rifts already brewing in her community.
I do think it does pit neighbor against neighbor. And I made the choice to get vaccinated. I'm not going to judge anyone else who doesn't.
George hasn't seen it in his friend group, but can certainly see it on the horizon.
You could see it actually just separate friends. I mean, it's entirely possible, right? Oh, I was your friend last week, but since you won't get vaccinated, yeah, you're not allowed over my house, or you can't be around me, or yeah, I'm sure it could happen out there.
And therein lies more potential danger. Not only an incredibly polarized nation on so many things, but now the carrot of life, the way we knew it, creating deeper crevasses instead of solutions.
My health and well-being is very connected to your behaviors and choices, and vice versa. My behaviors and choices affect your health and well-being.
And in fact, Dr. Wasserman already sees the shift in himself.
For those of us that want to, that are committed to the idea that science and our best data and best evidence is what's going to lead us out of this pandemic, to see people flaunting that for reasons that are political, reasons that are anti-scientific, it's incredibly frustrating. As a parent of young children, I mean, it's going to affect my choices about who we interact with, who they play with, where we go. And it already has. I've made it a deliberate point, for example, to shop at businesses that I see as enforcing mask mandates. And I've made it a specific point not to patronize businesses that I see as being lax about that enforcement.
Yeah, you know, this is where that old adage, we're all in this together, really isn't an old adage. It really is about shared purpose. And everyone I talked to today, and they represent a lot of people, understanding that there are people on the other side as well, but they really do believe that this is about this shared purpose. In other words, not just thinking about your own self or your own opinions, but how what you do affects everyone around you. Because again, this virus really doesn't care. Karen.
All right. Thank you very much, Paula Tutman, for us this afternoon. By the way, the state of Michigan reporting more than 3,600 new COVID cases today. That is down from yesterday. New at 5, we'll check with restaurant owners to get their reaction to the new goals and the impact on their businesses. Then at 6, we'll focus on the impact on big public events. The state's former health director shedding new light on what led to his abrupt resignation earlier this year. Robert Gordon says Governor Whitmer told him it was time to go in a different direction. He testified today via Zoom before the House Oversight Committee after being subpoenaed by lawmakers. They wanted to learn more about his separation agreement worth more than $155,000. Gordon testified he was offered the chance to resign, and he did.
I understood and the governor's team clarified for me that they would offer me an opportunity to resign, and I did so. When you're in a role like this, I was serving as an at-will appointee. It's important that the governor is comfortable with you in that role, and that you are comfortable in that role. And when it was clear that that was no longer the case, I resigned.
Now, we did just hear from the governor's office, which says the governor is not offering further comment on Gordon's departure. A longtime friend of former Detroit Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick is getting out of prison early. A federal judge granted Bobby Ferguson a compassionate release, saying he is vulnerable to the coronavirus. Ferguson was sentenced to 21 years in prison for extorting millions from Detroit as a contractor in a scheme he orchestrated with Kilpatrick. Ferguson had nearly 10 years left on his sentence. He still has to pay more than $6 million in restitution. Former President Trump commuted Kilpatrick's sentence, as you recall, back in January. 3 people went before a judge in a home invasion that's being investigated as a hate crime. Police say Michael Graves, Brandon Odegaard, and Macy Patriga broke into a Walled Lake home after midnight Monday. A mother and her 2 children were inside at the time, and that mom fired shots through the bedroom door. The family believes they were targeted because of their race, saying the suspects used a racial slur and threatened to kill them. The 3 suspects were arraigned on home invasion charges this morning. Well, it has been a very busy news day and pretty gloomy outside. Let's bring in Ben to see if the sun can brighten things up in the coming days.
Yeah, Karen, eventually we will get some sun, but I don't think we're going to get that afternoon break that we've been counting on here for the last 2. Still pretty soggy out there with Storm Tracker 4, light rain across the area, but that is the back edge of the widespread stuff. There may be a few areas of some sprinkles beyond that. You can see once we get past 7 o'clock, just a couple hit and miss sprinkles. That's going to carry forward through tomorrow morning until about lunchtime. Then we're finally in the clear as we finish out Friday and go into the weekend. But man, is it different for temperatures. 40s and low 50s out there currently. And believe it or not, we've got a very cold start going into the weekend. We'll check that in your 4-zone forecast and see if we can get back to these 70s any quicker in just a few minutes. Karen?
All right. Thank you, Ben. Still ahead, it is the next step in President Biden's sales pitch to Americans, plus a delayed presidential reunion. Also, a little girl rescued from a terrifying situation. Police talk about the promise that tempted her into trouble. It's a conversation you may need to keep having with your kids. And later, a Jeopardy champion's denial. Some people raise questions about a certain hand gesture. He says it's not what they were thinking. We'll talk about that in Trending Stories.